You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
I think we're all set. This is the October 5th meeting of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency. It is a special meeting. It is now 7:02. We have a quorum of commissioners for this evening's special meeting. The meeting is being held in accordance with Public Act 22(3). It is a virtual meeting. There can be no changes to the agenda given the fact that it is a special meeting. The meeting is posted on the town's website, mailed to the commissioners, and just keep me honest here, Jamie, with the fact that this is the agenda we're using for the 10-5 meeting was filed on 9/28. Has there been any updates since then?
No changes.
Okay. All commissioners are seated for this evening's discussion. Anything else? Let's do a roll call. I need to get the participants up. Okay. Suzanne Boda.
Commissioner Boda, present.
Commissioner Gorkowski.
Commissioner Goklowski, present.
Commissioner Biggerman.
Commissioner Begemon, present.
And Commissioner Basserman, present. We have a total of...
Ormond.
Wait a minute.
Ormond.
Oh, yeah. Commissioner Omrod.
Commissioner Ormrod, present.
Wonderful. We have 5 present. First up on the agenda is an enforcement activity, cease and correct 220901, 21 Brainerd Road. Construction without permits. This is a just cause hearing, I guess by statute and by our regulations, has to be held within 10 days of the notice. The notice, Jamie, was sent when?
Notice was sent on September 28th.
September 28th. By the way, we have a roll call that I missed for staff. Katie Blanchett.
Present.
And Jamie Frederick.
Present.
Now the roll call is complete. Anything you want to add to the discussion or to the process, Jamie, before we actually commence discussion on cease and correct 220901?
Sure. So Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent, we're having the special meeting because per state statute, the just cause hearing has to be held within 10 days of issuance of a cease and correct order. It does not look like we have the property owner present this evening. So this property probably sounds familiar to the commissioners because it's been on our agenda for almost a year now. A second cease and correct order was issued because the building official and fire official were able to inspect the site and take some photos and update me that there has been additional activity since I was last on the property. So I went ahead and I issued another cease and correct order outlining those additional activities. I also, so I won't get ahead of myself. So I have some of those photos. I have the cease and correct order. So ultimately, the commission has to decide whether to uphold and modify, or withdraw the order. You can make a decision this evening if you feel ready to, or you could continue it to the next meeting if you want to give the property owner another opportunity to attend. I do know that he received the letter because he did respond to one of my emails, and I do have that correspondence in the file as well. He didn't specifically reference the cease and correct order, but he did reference the citation that was issued in response to the last meeting. I did ask to be able to inspect the site, to which I got no response, and I did ask if he would be attending this evening's meeting, to which I got no response. So that's where things stand. The commission can always make a decision, and then if there's new information, revise their decision. So,
This is Commissioner Bassman, a process question. We need to treat these enforcements, given the fact that the letters were sent out on different dates, as two separate items in tonight's discussion.
if you wanted to, we could merge discussion on the two to some extent, but any motions, any decisions should clearly be for one or the other.
To me, Commissioner Bassman, for clarity purposes, it might be easier, given the correspondence that is initiated on the first 220901, separate from 221201, as time had passed between the two, and the information that you may have between item 1 and item 2 might be different. So if anybody wants to merge, I guess let's have that discussion, as opposed to as they're listed on the agenda, treating them separately. Okay. What is the issue in the event that we don't have the homeowner here present on the call? Does that impact our statutorily, number one?
No, so statutorily, they have to be noticed, certified mail return receipt, which happened. The meeting has to be held within 10 days. There's no requirement that they attend, just that they have the ability to. He did respond to me. He didn't say that this date didn't work for him. Can we reschedule it to another date? He hasn't been attending the meetings, even though his property has been on the agenda for a while now. So, I mean, if the commission wanted to give him another opportunity, you could wait to make a decision. Or like I said, I think you could probably make a decision and then modify it based on, new information that comes to light, should there be something.
Mr. Beck, can you screen share the email that was sent for the first cease and correct?
Yes. All right, is everyone seeing the letter?
Yes.
Yes. I'm remoting into my desktop and on my laptop at the same time. So, so the additional items, construction of a fence, including posts and footings and some additional work. They're putting in a wooden fence, with my understanding is a wire facing wooden posts. And they've constructed 2 new patios off of the structures that are being constructed without permits. There was a retaining wall that was part of that construction, which has been increased in size. And it came, the building official forwarded me a video this week that was submitted by a neighbor showing that work on that retaining wall has continued since this letter has been sent. Sediment transport offsite towards wetland and possibly within wetland area. Trash and debris located within and adjacent to wetland area. Maintenance of soil disturbance and construction of drainage modifications without approval from the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency and without proper installation of erosion controls. So I told him to stop any further work aside from properly installing the erosion controls. He does have a silt fence staked in place on site, which is in an appropriate location. However, he has not towed in the bottom of the silt fence after multiple requests to do so. Contact the office by phone, email, regular mail to confirm receipt of order and intent to comply. I did receive a response. It was just in regards to the citation, however. And also he said he was picking up the trash. when I asked about inspecting the silt fence in attendance at tonight's meeting, I didn't get a response. Correctly install erosion controls, contact for inspection, attend tonight's meeting to discuss next steps. And the information about tonight's meeting. And the three options the commission has is the order remains in effect, that a revised order is in effect, or that an order has been withdrawn. And if the commission decides to continue this to the next meeting, then the order is effective upon issuance and shall remain in effect until the agency affirms, revises, or withdraws the order. So if you don't make a decision tonight, the order would still remain in effect. And then the standard language about additional enforcement action that can be taken. So the first cease and correct order that was issued after various periods of time and inactivity or activity other than what the commission was looking to see happen on site occurred. That first cease and correct order has been filed on the land records and fines have been issued after the order was upheld and modified. So I think if I keep scrolling, I attached a couple of photos too, and I have the photos separately if you'd rather look at them.
Amy, did you say that there have already been fines issued?
Yeah, so at the last meeting, the commission directed me to issue a citation, which I did in the amount of $1,500.
It was a one-time fine?
Correct.
And how did the commission end up at 1,500?
So I had drafted an initial notice, and the town has a citation ordinance, which is what allows the commission or its duly authorized agent to issue fines. So there's 4 different reasons you can issue a fine. And then there's the amount that you can fine based on that item. So I determined that he was in violation of 2 of those, one in the amount of $500 and one in the amount of $1,000 for a total of $1,500. So I think I proposed the amount based on that.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, the beginning of the letter where you indicated the 6, if you will, violations, are they all on the owner's property?
So most of it's on the owner's property, if not all of it. I think some of the trash and maybe some of the sediment is on other property. The property to the rear where the wetland is located is town property. So I do think if you're looking at this picture here, I don't know if you guys can see it very well, but you can see that there's construction debris and trash. And you can see, if you look really closely, right where the hand cursor is, there's a little wetland flag. The silt fence is pretty much on the property line. So I think all of this activity is on town property. And then based on the survey that was submitted in response to the first cease and correct order issued in December of last year, I think part of this retaining wall might be on the neighbor's property, but I don't know for sure. But the end of this retaining wall looked like it encroached slightly onto the neighbor's property. So it's possible that he's not totally within the confines of the subject property.
Commissioner Bassman, and have we heard complaints from that abutting property owner regarding the wall and the location?
I have not heard any complaints directly. However, I was forwarded that video from the building official, so I'm assuming that he's received complaints. I don't know the context of it, but I would say it pertains to the retaining wall and or the continued construction.
And given, is Commissioner Bassman again, and given the fact that you have not been allowed on the property, have you been able to determine that the erosion controls are working or are we still unclear regarding that?
No, so the building official and the fire marshal were ordered to do an inspection by the courts. And the building official took photos, which he shared with me, and from those photos, which are much higher quality than what I attached to this letter, I can see that the silt fence is clearly not towed in still. So I would say no, it has not been installed unless it's been installed since then, but I doubt it, because I've not heard from the property owner to inform me otherwise. So yeah, these pictures were taken September 16th. It did take me a little bit to get the order out because I had a bit of a vacation and then I got COVID.
That'll teach you to go on vacation.
Commissioner Goklowski. Jamie, would the property owner that's sending the videos to the town allow you to have access to their property so you could observe what's going on the subject property?
I could see if I could get contact information from the building official and ask them.
I personally think at this stage, I mean, this party is just thumbing their noses at the town every which way but loose and just doing what the hell they want to do. And I think at this stage, you've been more than patient with this individual for a very long period of time. And I think the games, I don't think they think that you're going to do anything more than what we've already done. And that's basically what it is. And they're going to continue doing what they want to do.
Yeah, so I guess two things. One, the building official did update me. In addition to going out to see the site and doing an inspection, they did have another court date earlier this week. And the property owner was given until the end of the month to get an attorney or representation. And then I believe their next court date is October 30th. And it was presented that work was continuing on site. So the property owner was made to sign a document stating that he would do no more work on the property. So I'm sure that will be reviewed at the October 30th court date.
Do you know if that is a hearing before the judge or a short calendar hearing?
I believe it'll be before the judge.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, does that document that he signed prevent him from towing in the erosion control?
I was kind of wondering that. I don't think so. I don't. I'm sure that he'll. I don't know. I have followed up with him, but not since I've found out about that document. So, I might.
This is Commissioner Bodo. Could we, can we have access, not at this second, but could that ruling be part of the file so that we can look at that and see if it impacts any future language that we use for whether it's a cease and correct or
I'll see if I can get that documentation. I will say that I did sit in on the previous court meeting, and it was specifically mentioned that no additional work should occur on site other than what town staff direct him to do. So hopefully that document outlines that. So I'll see if I can get a copy or if it's available or not.
Well, this is Commissioner Boda. I would agree. This has been going on long enough. We can see from not just the not addressing it. We heard a very personal story about the challenges of dealing with this, but clearly, that so much additional work has been done and none of which to address the original cease and correct. I think we can agree that we need to, there's no lifting of any of this. And so we're either upholding and modifying, but I don't know what we would be modifying for at this point, because the fine should stay in place. And everything that's been enumerated should stay in place. So unless there's anything additional, at this point, I would say we uphold.
Commissioner Bassman, I guess as you were speaking, Commissioner Boda, I guess I wonder if we, regarding feedback of this meeting, since the homeowner is not present, is it appropriate or not, basically, to say if he does not make a physical appearance at the next meeting, then the order will be issued by the commission to tear down all work that was indicated in items 1 through 6 of the September, or whatever it was, 28th letter. Is that beyond a reach for us, or?
I think, Commissioner Goklowski, 2 meetings ago, it was, Jamie was, if I remember correctly, Jamie was very frustrated that the gentleman was given the opportunity to come, and I believe he indicated that he was going to come, and he was a no-show. And we extended it. We gave him another 30 days to show at a meeting. I mean, the town has taken this party to court, and he's still doing what they feel like doing, and they're not following any rules. I think time has run out for them to give them any more latitude.
This is Commissioner Boda. I think to the chairman's question. So it seems like there's multiple parts, right? So first we have the 2 different cease and correct. And then, so we would need to make a determination if we are upholding those, or potentially with the second one, upholding and modifying to add the, some of the language that you just suggested. We would need to talk about what the content of that part is. Or if we strictly uphold the first 2, I guess it wouldn't necessarily make sense to do a third letter. So I think it would, I'm sorry, I'm thinking out loud, but so the modification would be, without addressing these things, it will be our requirement to undo the work that's been done.
Yes, Commissioner Bassman. The reason I thought about bifurcating these 2 and retaining the bifurcation is that we've already issued a letter and a fine on the first one. The record will show that the individual did not appear, requested multiple times, he still not appear. And so basically we're saying we're going to uphold and modify, and at the next meeting in November, the work is either completed or the order will be issued by the commission to tear down everything that's been done. On the second cease and correct, it seems to me we have not issued a fine on that one yet, correct, Jamie?
Correct. There's been no fine issued relative to the second order, or the activities outlined per this order. So I will just comment that the first cease and correct order has been upheld by the commission. So we're only looking to act on the second cease and correct order. I put the first one on the agenda because I kind of figured we'd have to talk a little bit about it in the context of this one, and also because I wanted to update the commission that the citation was sent out.
This is Commissioner Boda. Jamie, so clarification. Now, I'm trying to think about the framework for what a party has to do with respect to a wetland. And when we're thinking about things like permits and whether or not we grant a permit, it has to be, our decision has to be tied directly to a likely impact. But since this is outside of a permit, are we, I guess, what is the connection to any ruling that we make with respect to a likely impact? And the reason why I ask is because if we were to say the property must be restored to its 2021 state, full stop, do we put ourselves on a legally tenuous situation versus enumerating like this, and this needs, do you understand what I'm getting at? Like the difference between a cease and correct that's outside of, because this is outside of a permit.
Right. So Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I get what you're saying, and that's why I put the language in with the option of either restoring it or submitting an application, because you can't really deny somebody the ability to apply for a permit. I do think the commission has the right to put deadlines on things, but I'm not sure to the extent of mandating removal. I think I feel like there's one other comment that I wanted to make relative to, I also would be hesitant to say 2021 because I know that there was some construction started as early as at least 2019. So
yeah, whatever that start date was, I just sort of went back from the first one. I think the big question is like, for if we were going to modify and say that without a plan, we are going to require that the property owner restore the property to the condition prior to this work. Do we have to then enumerate everything? Or is it just a simple return to its pre-construction state? And if we were to say that, is there enough of a nexus between each of those items and the wetlands that we would be legally in our lane?
I think given the fact that we are meeting again next week, it might be best for me to check with town council and follow up on that prior to making a decision. Because I'm honestly not sure.
Commissioner Gosowski, if we issue an order in saying that we wanted the property restored to its original condition prior to all construction happening, based on the property owner's history of being very lackadaisical, don't you think there would be more damage possibly done to the wetlands if we issue that order and just do the stay and have everything stopped just the way it is right now?
Yeah,
so we can assess the situation.
Honestly, I think the number one thing that needs to happen right now is the installation of the erosion controls and no additional site work, the removal of the trash and debris. So I think one of the other, in order to do that, you would have to set a date that it's,
work must be completed by.
Yeah, and to be honest, for him to submit an application and get through all the design process and what have you, that's a process that takes months. And the professionals that do these plans have been very busy in recent years. So I mean, yes, he's had all this time, but he hasn't, I don't think he's started on it because he's expressed that he does not have the money to do it. So unless you give him months to get an application in, it's not really realistic.
Commissioner Gokowski, but on the same token, if he has the money to continue construction on the property, he should have the funds to do the proper application so he can continue with his construction on the property.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Why don't we indicate that that in the next week, since we have a regular meeting next week, he needs to give you, Jamie, permission to walk the property, to get your own firsthand assessment and look at what activity is there, what's in violation and what is not. Because right now we're not dealing with, a perfect set of facts here. Does that help?
So that would
This
be the
is-
modification.
I'm sorry.
So that would be a modification of this cease and correct.
Yes.
This is
Or
Commissioner-
the commission could hold off on making a decision on this and
I don't think at this stage we need to make a modification. I think we have to allow Jamie to contact the property owner and say, listen, the commission is allowing me one more attempt to visit the site before they make a final ruling. And I would leave everything just the way it is as it stands, rather than going through the additional language and modifications.
So what we could do is hold off on making a decision this evening, potentially. Tell the property owner that this will be reviewed again next Thursday. That the commission wants me to conduct a site inspection prior to that meeting and see the erosion controls properly installed, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry. This is Commissioner Bono. Why would we hold off on making a decision? Because I
So
think
the
that we
only-
have enough data so far.
The other reason I was going to get at is because then I could follow up with town council in regards to the other questions that have been raised about mandating restoration. Because I
This is
think
Commissioner Basserman.
that once the commission makes a decision on the order, it starts to get messy to revise it. Like I'm not entirely sure what that process.
So Jamie, this is Commissioner Boda. So, okay, so we could table, which would give you an opportunity to talk to town council. It would also give you an opportunity to go back to, I think, Warfield Road. Was that the property that was a very protracted, similar kind of.
Yeah. Yes,
Um,
okay, that was it.
Yeah,
Warfield.
Katie, you and me back in the day. All right.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Are we talking about Alex Warfield or?
yes.
Okay.
So to go back to that, and look at the history of that, because I think that there was restoration required within that. But I think if we're going to require restoration, and again, I may be having trouble right now just separating what we can do with a cease and correct versus an application. We may have more authority with a cease and correct simply because there is no permit. So I just want to be really super clear that we're okay. And then Jamie, you would come back to the next meeting with a, potentially some points that could be revised, and we can vote on that. Is that the image or the takeaway?
Yeah, I think that might be help. Yeah, at least like an outline of points that could be considered, and you guys can, reshape them as you see fit.
And then still, Commissioner Boda, also, would you be able to, you and Katie, be able to just pull together one of your beautiful staff reports with a a timeline of events from the first cease and correct or the first interaction.
I think I have a rough draft of one of those already. So yeah, we can do that.
That would be really super helpful.
Commissioner Branford, just for clarity, after that discussion, then would the decision tonight be just to continue the existing cease and correct, and we will review it at our next regularly scheduled meeting? Or do we actually have to modify the existing number one cease and correct to put in that same context the fact that it would be reviewed at the next meeting? So it's either a continue or a continue and modify. And I'm not clarity on, I don't have clarity on the distinction.
Yeah, Jamie Frederick, inland wetland agent. So the order is in place and remains in place until the commission makes a decision. So this order will remain in place. And I think that's part of the reason why I think it might be best to wait, that you picked up right there. I think part of what the commission's looking to do is not only modify this order, but modify the other order, which has already been filed on the land record. So I just want to make sure I know what that process should look like before we do anything, since at this point, I don't think this week versus next week is going to make a big difference.
Commissioner Ormrod, Jamie, do we have a notice of violation issued to this property?
No, so a notice of violation is an informal enforcement tool, and it was pretty blatant and obvious, and at a level where I thought it was appropriate to jump right to a cease and correct order. The
only reason I asked is because I'm looking at the regs here, and section 14 enforcement, the issue of a notice of violation seems to be the tool through which we can enforce using other enforcement proceedings as provided by law. So I'm not really sure what that entails, but it seems to be, only apply if there's a notice of violation in place, and not, I don't see that same language for the cease and correct.
So which section of section 14 are you looking at?
This would be 14.4, 4B.
So issue a notice of violation to such person conducting such activity or maintaining such facility or condition, stating the nature of the violation, the jurisdiction of the agency, and prescribing the necessary action and steps to correct the possible violation, including without limitation, halting work in inland wetlands and water courses. The agency may request that the individual appear at the next regularly scheduled meeting, or the agency may discuss the unauthorized activity and or provide a written reply to the notice or file a proper application for the necessary permit. Failure to carry out the actions directed in a notice of violation. Sorry?
There's no mention in the NOV, though, of being able to levy fines. You can only do that after the
No,
public hearing.
fines actually, the citation process is separate. I think it's kind of been the commission's past practice. I don't have a lot of experience with the citations because we haven't been using them, but looking through the files historically and scanning files and whatnot, looking up properties, it appears that usually a fine has been used when somebody is not being responsive to a cease and correct order. So the notice of violation is an informal tool to try and work with the property owner to get something to a resolution. The reason why I issued a cease and correct order is not only the level of activity, but the fact that there's something that has to be done to correct the activity that has occurred. So regardless of whether or not there's an impact to the wetland or water course, they have violated the regulations. They're not compliant with the regulations because they did not get a permit. And clearly from the pictures, we can see that there's at the very least trash in the wetland. So the 14.4A is the cease and correct order process. and 10 calendar days is you have the hearing, which we're having right now. 2 does not apply because that's if you're withdrawing or modifying a permit. So, sorry, Commissioner Ormerod, can you just remind me of what your concern was relative to the processes?
This is Commissioner Ormerod. Thank you, Jamie, for talking that out. It does seem like the NOV is a tool that is used, initially and then moves on to the cease and correct. I just wasn't sure if that would give us, some other kind of leverage authority to enforce the regulations.
Yeah, so a cease and correct order, so a notice of violation is an informal violation where the commission is trying to work with the property owner to get to a resolution. I'll use that oftentimes if I think it's just a matter of submitting an application and getting approval, maybe making a couple modifications. A cease and correct order is issued when somebody does not listen to a notice of violation, or when the activity is extreme enough that immediate action needs to be taken and a notice of violation is not going to be a fast enough process.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
Also, with the notice of violation being an informal tool, technically, it doesn't really authorize anyone to do anything. So it relies on the submission of an application to have permission to do something, whereas a cease and correct order says you're in violation and you must do these actions to correct the violation.
Okay, so this is Commissioner Boda, and I think 14.5 kind of gets at what I was talking about earlier, which is the effect to the wetland or water course. So I think whatever we indicate, it's not a blanket restoration, but a restoration as it is likely to impact those wetlands. So, but I think it sounds like we're all in agreement, and we have our next steps.
Yeah, and I'd be hesitant to
Go ahead.
I'm hesitant to move too fast because there are many departments involved in this violation. And he's gonna have problems coming from all different angles. So I'm keeping up to date with building and fire. I'm also keeping up to date with zoning. Per zoning regulations, there's a lot of variances they would need to keep the structures that they're building. So unfortunately, I think kind of working with other departments and taking this slow is the way to go. Kind of going off of what Commissioner Boda was saying as far as what the jurisdiction of the commission is.
I see your lane.
And so when somebody submits an application, the burden of why they should be granted an application is on the applicant. When the commission issues a violation, the burden of proving the violation is on the commission. So that's part of why the citation that I issued was for $1,500, because I wanted to be very conservative and stick to the things that I could clearly document they were in violation of. So,
Jamie, I guess procedurally then, since this order that's 220901 and 221201 continue until a decision is made, is the process then to table both items to the next regularly scheduled meeting, A, and B, how do we then get the message to the homeowner that a physical inspection needs to take place by the enforcement officer by the time of the next meeting? Are those two separate processes, or is it combined?
I would say since no formal action is being taken on either, I can send a letter to the property owner stating that the commission has determined to continue review of both cease and correct order CC 22-1201 and 230901 to their regularly scheduled meeting October 10th, 12th. And that the commission
Request a physical inspection?
yeah, I was debating whether to use request or a stronger word. Request requires an inspection prior to that meeting to help guide decision making, help inform in decision making.
Commissioner Kokowski, Jamie, what department actually commenced the legal action against the homeowner?
This is
You know?
Commissioner Beckerman. Before that gets answered, regarding other things that might go into this, Jamie, did you also want to repeat that no work is to be done and that the towing of the retention, whatever that thing is called, the black plastic
silt
has to
fence.
be done. The silt fence.
Yep, I can read to that. And I can touch base with Tony beforehand to see if he thinks that that would conflict with what the court required since he was there, and maybe ask him to supplement that if he thinks there might be a concern.
Yeah.
The court case has to do with building and fire violations, but it's a housing violation, so it actually brought forth, I believe, by the housing authority, by the state.
Commissioner Gopowski, you had a question?
Yeah,
She just answered the question.
Yeah.
And none of that is our lane. Like none of it.
I understand that, but it's also part of our lane because the work is continuing on the wetlands. And if the property owner is ignoring a court order, he's not gonna abide by anything that Jamie sends out to them.
I agree, but all we do is we follow our process, and right now our process is for Jamie to go back, do her due diligence, so that we can. Our responsibility is strictly to those regs, and also to make sure that having been through many litigations, our job is to make sure that we are talking very narrowly about what's in our lane. That's what's going to be on the record. Anything else cannot impact our decision making. And so Jamie is going to go back and do her due diligence. She'll come back with new language. She's going to look at the historical record to see what worked in the past. And if we accidentally didn't cross a T or dot an I, and we'll avoid that. And I think the best thing for us to do is to just strictly talk about inland wetlands water courses, not have anything else on the record. That's the kind of stuff that gets us in trouble.
Yeah, Jamie Frederick, inland wetland agent. So I think the relevance of the court case only would come up if there's an order for him to obtain permits or something like that, in which case I know that the building official and the fire marshal are going to refer them through the process they would normally go through, which starts with inland wetlands. So it might help our process and our concern in the sense that it might be another push to move forward and go through our requirements. But aside from that, it doesn't really have any impact.
And this is Commissioner Boda. I think that we know what we want to do. I think Jamie's got a plan. We have a plan. I think we should table it to the next meeting and adjourn this meeting, because there's nothing else to discuss that is I don't think there's anything else. There's nothing new to discuss that is going to inform our next steps.
Just one question. One of the things I'm to do is to draft considerations for upholding and modifying the order. Does the commission want me to address potentially filing the cease and correct order and or issuing more fines as part of that process? Or do you want to wait and determine that later?
You're talking about for the next, so for the modified one that we're looking at doing next week, if we want to include possible continuing of fines.
I think it would be the issuance of additional fines. And then also the first cease and correct order has been filed on the land records. The second cease and correct order after it's been upheld and modified, should that be what the commission decides to do,
Yes.
could also be filed on the land records. Or
Yes.
you could give the property owner a window of time to comply before it gets filed, and or fines are issued.
They should, this is Commissioner Boda. It should go on the land records. I mean, it's not the first cease and correct. It's been almost a year. Anything else additional should go on the land records.
Commissioner Goklowski, Jamie, didn't we already file on the land records with this particular case?
We've filed the first cease and correct order on the land records. This is
Okay,
the second
so there-
cease and correct order, so it's a separate violation order. So
I think, my opinion at this time, and whatever it's worth, you planned on having a discussion with town council at some point this week to find out the leverage, and that can be discussed with the commission at the next regular meeting.
okay.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, what's the value of putting another restriction, if you will, on the land record? Does that add really any additional weight or not?
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. So I think what it does is it should the property ever, before this gets resolved, should somebody be interested in obtaining the property, it gives them a fuller picture of what the violations on the property are. I mean, hopefully if they see one violation from the Inland Wetland Agency on the land records, they'll come up and ask us, hey, what's going on? And we can share everything. So, I mean, at this point, I think it shows the commission
It's
important it gets resolved. But I mean, as far as notifying somebody that the site's in violation or, potentially stopping the transfer of property, and that's already kind of in place with the first citation for the first
appraised value?
I'm sorry?
Is it appraised value?
What did you say?
Does it affect the appraised value of the property?
No.
Well, Katie Blanchett, Inland Wetland Associate, if you file it on the land records, if he was going to try to remortgage the property, then it would be something that theoretically the mortgage company could see and question about. However, we had the issue with 117 Flax Mill that had the order filed on the land records, and somehow it never showed up in the title search or, when they were. So I think it could kind of go either way.
Gotcha. Okay. We need a motion here, Jamie, given the fact that this is, the 10-day window on the cease and correct.
Just a comment that we're continuing discussion of both cease and correct orders to the next regularly scheduled meeting. And then I'll just comment real quick, if anyone has any additional modifications, additions they'd like to have on the credentials that you've not already discussed with staff, to please send that to us tomorrow by noon. Because we're probably gonna be adding that to a file very soon.
And would it, is there then a separate letter or the same letter that indicates the physical inspection is required?
I will follow up with the property owner with a letter in regards to both cease and correct orders as we've discussed this evening, stating that an inspection shall occur prior to the next meeting and telling him he should attend the next meeting. And we'll see what happens.
Okay, anybody? Well, we don't have anything else on the agenda, so I guess I'll look for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
And we had a good meeting today before 8 o'clock.
Second,
Thank you for participating again. I know that this is a lovely week to spend time enjoying the last vestiges of summer rather than sitting around at 7 o'clock on a Thursday evening. Thank you.
we have a second real quick.
Good night.
There's a motion. Somebody's
David?
got to second it.
David, did you second it?
Second it, yes.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Good night.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.